There you go. Our new intro for the really big show. I'm Jim Check from Kelowna Now, and on the phone with me, Ian Burns, all the way from Ottawa. Look at that background this morning. Traffic flowing nicely in Kelowna, and it looks like a beautiful, beautiful uh, fall day still fall. December 21st, I think, is our longest day of the year, which is the beginning of winter. How you doing out there, Ian?
I'm doing swell, mate. It does look beautiful around Kelowna. Nice light.
It is absolutely. We're going to try to do 30 minutes too. We're going to try and work on a few things here, but the really big show kicks off right now. This GST holiday that the Liberals have been trying to float, really meeting a lot of headwinds. Now they're saying it could cost up to $2.7 billion dollars instead of $1.5 billion dollars. And there was even Blacklock's reported that it could end up to an average benefit of under $5 for most people.
Yeah, well, that isn't uh that isn't what they were expecting, I don't think. The fanfare with which it was announced. It seems to me that it was their kind of like headline comeback policy, because they're
Yeah.
desperately trying to launch this comeback, aren't they? Since they've been
Yeah.
down for so long in the polls. And I think
It,
this was pretty central to their plan. And it
look,
seems to be a bit of a damp squib, really. But I mean, time will tell. Maybe people will be happy about it or happier than they appear to be now. But as things
businesses,
stand, it looks like
yeah,
a dud, really, doesn't it?
businesses are pushing back on it, and Chrystia Freeland, our finance minister, did not have a good time with the Senate trying to explain it. They said it's basically worthless, and if it's just for political purposes, okay, but like it really has no benefit to Canadians.
Yeah, a few people have said that, and businesses, as we'll probably talk about later, they've got other things on their mind, like, well, obviously the high cost of debt would probably be near the top, but
Yeah.
businesses are also very worried about Canada Post. I mean, I've been reading like personal accounts from certain businesses about how they have like hundreds of thousands of dollars of orders, and they're just sitting there in their
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
warehouse or
And,
wherever.
and even payments between businesses, a lot of that tends to be still mailing checks to each other, right? And those are all caught up in that mess as well. And here we go. When we talked about interest rates, they are expecting a 0.5 cut. Um, so I think you can expect that. I think the markets are leaning towards that now, and that has a lot to do with the employment numbers in Canada, and just the stagnation here in Canada compared to what's going on in the United States.
Well, and that's the key, really, isn't it? Because if we go down even further, we're already lower than the Americans now, and if we go further, it's going to be a very, very bad time to go to Disneyland, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, and then Trudeau says the fall of Assad ends decades of brutal oppression for Syria. It looks like the Assad has found refuge in Russia.
Yeah, I mean, there were reports that he'd actually died on, I think it was Saturday or maybe it was Sunday, but yeah, then the Russians announced that he was in Moscow. Apparently, he's had quite a cold reception from his sponsor, Vladimir Putin. But yeah, it was a big surprise that, wasn't it? And lots of people are quite excited, and the usual suspects in Washington and parts of Europe are very pleased about it. But the Middle East, surely we've learned now since the Arab Spring, 13 years ago, or whatever it was that it started. We must have learned our lesson now that once a dictator's gone, what follows isn't necessarily better. So,
Yeah. There's a
keep
lot
an
of
eye on
talk
it.
out there that what's coming is probably another terrorist organization. So I don't know. There's a lot out there. Hopefully, it's better, but
Yeah, I mean they deserve a break, don't they, the Syrians? It's been a pretty horrible couple of decades or more for them.
yeah. And the Canada Post thing, you talked about it just a few minutes ago. It enters its fourth week, and they're still a long ways apart.
Yeah, and I mean the sort of excess demand, or whatever term you want to use, that's created, like businesses and individuals who need to mail things, they're now having to go to the American companies, FedEx, UPS, etc., and even Purelator, which is actually owned, isn't it, by
Yeah.
Canada Post. They're having to transfer to that, and because of that demand, there's like a huge backlog now. Deliveries are taking longer, and again, reading some kind of like personal testimony from businesses, people that run businesses, they're saying that they're being like given quotes for deliveries that are just kind of like way more expensive even than the product. It's like it's reaching crazy levels because
Yeah.
they, with this excess demand, they can now basically charge what they want, and it's just a disaster all around, isn't it?
Deliveries are definitely being delayed. I'm getting a lot of notices saying that, and then also I think like FedEx and Purelator, not Purelator, FedEx and UPS are refusing some stuff that's because their systems are maxed out. So I mean, they need to find a solution to this for sure.
Well, it surprises me that it's actually gone on this long, and
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure if there's an explanation anywhere as to why the government hasn't just come and, you know,
Well, I mean, force
uh,
them to arbitration at a minimum, right? And back
yeah,
to work and
because
then
they've done
forced
that
arbitration, right? Which is a fair thing to do, I think, lots of times. So
totally, and they did it for the port strike, didn't they? So
they
I
did.
feel like
Yeah.
this is probably as important as that, isn't it?
Well, maybe they're doing this because maybe they want to do away with Canada Post, and this is their way of letting it kind of like explode, which doesn't seem good for most Canadians.
Mm.
Uh, Calgary's unemployment rate higher than the Canadian average. But analyst says it's stressed that it's not because people are being ill, rather it's because so many people are moving to Alberta faster than the labor market can absorb them. Because then there was another there's a message there from Daniel Smith there saying Alberta's job growth rate is 5 times higher than national average. So what they're saying, they're defending that is it is likely true in that Alberta is just seeing such a huge influx of people going there for cheaper housing, cheaper cost of living, and better jobs.
Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing this for a while now, haven't we? Because
Yeah.
as BC has started to become like a net, it's a net emigration province almost. Like people are leaving there.
Right.
More people leave than come, and at least when it comes to the interprovincial um, sort of balance of migration. But Alberta for a very long time now has just been like attracting huge numbers of people. It's
Yeah.
quite
And
impressive.
they're doing really well in the tech sector. And you think it's all oil and gas, but that's not true. They're doing extremely well in the tech sector. Calgary is a business hub of Canada, and that happened way back when the Vancouver Stock Exchange closed and decided that it's going to move to Calgary. Edmonton closed out its head offices, moved to Calgary. So it is kind of like Toronto West, and I think it's even bigger than Vancouver as a business hub now. From other than the port stuff, I think a lot of people are really looking at it just because it's easier to get employees there because it's a easier cost of living. They can build more houses because obviously they got land forever.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of those two cities compared to each other, Vancouver and Calgary, you'd think that it was Vancouver's to lose, really, wasn't it? That status as the big boy of the West. So the fact that it seems to be losing it speaks volumes for um, governance in Vancouver over recent decades, I would say.
Yep. So it's over. It's finally over. Taylor Swift ends her beloved Eras tour in Vancouver after that glittering global run. That's like one for the record books for sure, right? 149
Yeah, not
shows,
least
20
in money
months.
earned,
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
of
So
billion.
what's that? $2 billion.
That's right, yeah.
Nothing to sneeze at, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. And she said that in this story from CP, she says the legacy of the tour would be a space of joy and togetherness and love. So she's still using the language from 1968 there with pride.
There you go. Big White, unlimited visibility, plenty of snow, dozens of run open. All smiles at the hill this morning. Sunshine in the valley and big powder in the hills. Can't ask for
Yeah,
better
it's
than that, right?
looking like a good day.
This is one of the things that makes the Okanagan extremely famous, and I can see that our winter seasons are going to do extremely well. Hopefully, um, no risk of wildfires during the winter either. So just beautiful sunshine and lots of powder.
That's the prediction of, I believe, the Weather Network recently said they expect a really good skiing season.
Lots of powder. Who doesn't love that, right? Conservative MLA calls out NDP on the bankruptcy of the small business BC, and that's Gavin Dew, our own Kelowna Mission MP. It says that they're asleep at the switch at something this basic. So small business BC saying they're going out of business. And I think a lot of small businesses feel the same way.
Yeah, and Gavin is being put forward, I think, as their pretty much like their main economic critic,
He,
isn't he? Their main
yeah,
like
he's the
business spokesman.
jobs and innovation shadow critic. So there you go. And one of the cute things from the internet. This is a little X, and Elon Musk takes this little fella around everywhere with him. And out of the mouth of babes, here you go. I'm gonna play this clip here.
What should I do?
Save America.
And?
Help Trump.
Okay.
There you go. Out of the mouth of babes.
I'm sure Elon Musk will be presently being reported for child abuse by some
He takes
fanatic.
that. He takes that one. Like he's got like 10 kids. He takes. I think it's 10. Might be more now. He takes the Lex everywhere though. Obviously, he took him to like when he went to for his first Doge meeting there. He was on his shoulders walking in and he sits at the table and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean it's good. It's a good sign. Like you take your kids to work.
It is interesting though that he's had this kid in particular has had a sort of special prominence, hasn't he? I wonder if he's being groomed as the successor or something.
He loves the name X. Twitter's been renamed X, SpaceX. There's a lot of X's and XAI. X is his thing. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you could only be the son of a billionaire with the name Lil X, couldn't you? You wouldn't get away with it otherwise, I don't think.
No different than Steve Jobs and Lisa. There you go. In the markets, let's switch to markets. Gold. Big move this morning on gold. Like I said, it's going to look for a catalyst, and one of those catalysts was that China has resumed buying on the world markets, and then the unrest in Syria is obviously adding to that geopolitical strain and people moving towards gold. So this could be the catalyst that needs to move higher before the end of the year. So up big time this morning. So Bitcoin dancing around that 100,000 mark. It's broke through it a couple times now, but it's going to flirt with that 100,000 for a bit here before it finds a catalyst to move itself forward as well. Canadian dollar not looking well. It's 70, just under 71 cents this morning. That rate cut likely put more pressure on it when it comes. And breaking below 69 or 70 would not be good for the Canadian dollar and for people's pocketbooks and that when they go to the grocery store, because a lot of the stuff is imported from the United States and everything tends to be priced in the USD. And the USD showing a lot of strength.
Good for oil exports, though, so there'll be some happy people.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Good, because if they're paying wages in Canadian dollars and selling their products in US dollars, a big win for a lot of the exporters. And that's part of the reason that the Canadian kind of like almost purposely holds our dollar down, depresses it, is on that, because we do a lot of exporting, right? So not great for the consumer, but there you go. Here's something new. You can't invest in SpaceX because it's a privately held company. But this new ETF out there called XOVR is the first ETF to provide retail investors with daily exposure to private equity. And they now say SpaceX is their largest holding in this ETF. So it's they had it on Fox News, and they are they interviewing the COO, and that is an interesting way to get into SpaceX, and also Starlink, which isn't available to most people other than accredited investors. People have invested in SpaceX and therefore Starlink, but it's only accredited investors in the United States. And this is one way to get in there if you're interested in either one of those companies.
Has Elon said that he intends to go through with an IPO, or does he want to just keep it private for as long as possible.
I mean, they've talked about it, but there's another that part of that fundraise. They were part of that. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of people talking that it will eventually go as an IPO in maybe a couple of years, but then there's a lot of people saying now that with all the trouble he's had with like this Tesla thing, that maybe he doesn't take it public because there's enough ways to raise money through private equity that it doesn't need the general markets. The general markets is kind of like, it's tougher and tougher because private equity has kind of taken over a lot of that thing, where they, because you used to have to use the markets for raising funds.
Yeah, that's the kind of the point, isn't it? That was the innovation of I guess it was the Italians and the Dutch that started it off, didn't they, many moons ago?
But the downsides of private equity sometimes is the lack of liquidity, because the stock markets do provide liquidity. So this kind of ETF gets you the best of both worlds: private equity plus liquidity. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, we know Elon as well. He really likes to have full control of companies, doesn't he? And he really resents interference.
Yeah, he seems to do a good job though too, right? On the other side of that,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah. No, I'm not saying that that's a criticism
uh,
of him, but it's like to have to share your company with people, it makes things a bit trickier, doesn't it? Especially if you're somebody like Elon that likes
well,
to
I
kind
mean,
of
he
be
also has
hands-on.
to respect the market, though. If he's asked the money from the market, then there's a responsibility to the market as well. Anyway, in our AI section this morning, Google now using AI to predict the weather. There you go. That'll be interesting to see if Google can do a better job than the weatherman. For us, the weather, we look out the window. There you go. It looks good today.
That's one of the most reliable ways to do it.
That's our weather forecast here from Kelowna. Now we look out the window. Actually, we do have some stuff that we use from Environment Canada and that, but lots of times in the Okanagan, the window is the best weather predictor. Looks like a great day in the Okanagan for sure. In our EV section, in a call with Deutsche Bank, Tesla says they're going to build a Model Q, and it's going to debut in the first half of 2025 as a sub $30,000 USD car, like US cost, and it's going to compete with the BYD Dolphin and Volkswagen ID3 in China as well. So a cheaper Tesla on the way.
And is that just for China, or is that also going to be in the US market?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where it's going to launch, but they tend to launch everywhere, and it just takes a while for stuff to move across. Like the Cybercab is also being built, and that's the next slide we have here. And there's Elon's tweet there. There will ultimately be tens of millions of driverless Teslas through the world, giving 24/7 access to transportation. They're really ramping up this Cybercab and Optimus, and you're seeing it in the stock price of Tesla as well, that Tesla is now being recognized as way more than an automobile company. It's being recognized for autonomy and full self-driving, and Optimus, the robot, I think is where all the, big blue sky potential is.
Yeah, it's going to be the end of Uber.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Uber will make a deal with Tesla. Who knows, right? I mean, there's competition everywhere. I mean, I really like Uber as well. Uber seems to have built a really big business. They have like 120 million plus users, active users on their app. That's a big audience, right? So
Yeah. And also, I guess a self-driven car wouldn't be able to knock on your door and deliver your food, would it? You'd need an Optimus for that.
somebody has to get the food in and out. But Uber could just buy a bunch of cybercabs and run them in their Uber fleet too, right?
Yeah, unless Elon wants to try and get in on the Uber market as well and just conquer
Well,
the entire planet.
he says that he has already built the app or whatever, so that will compete with Uber and Lyft and all that. So, but I'm sure there's lots of room in there. There's, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of cars out there, and transportation as a service, and lots of opportunity. Every technology definitely can make a lot of people's lives better and safer.
And specifically in our sort of environment here in Canada, where one of the worst things of all is trying to transport goods, isn't it? It tends to just be in a truck,
Yeah.
which costs a lot of money and kind of sucks for the people that have to do it. And it's very dangerous as well. So if that could be electrified and automated and then powered by nuclear power, hydro, whatever, we could be having a laugh in Canada when it comes to transport costs.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the biggest projects going on in the world right now. A lot of them centered in the Middle East because they're using money for oil. And you're like, we don't even have a Trans-Canada highway that's 4 lane all the way across Canada. And like high-speed rail, all that kind of stuff doesn't exist in Canada. And yet we could be using our oil and gas no different than the Middle East is and Norway and that to better fund Canada for projects that benefit all the citizens here. And it sometimes is puzzling. Like green energy, obviously, like it's cheaper, better, faster. But we could use the profits from the oil and gas and LNG to fuel a better tomorrow, literally fuel a better tomorrow.
Definitely, and you don't even have to look just to the Middle East. The Norwegians have also shown how you do it. They've got
Yeah.
like a $1 or $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund, haven't they? They're like,
Yeah.
they've done it
Yeah.
the right way. But I feel like Norway and the Middle Eastern countries, they all recognize that their wealth derives from oil and natural resources. They're very conscious of that, and it's well understood. Whereas I feel in Canada, there's some kind of confusion about that. And people think that Canada's just a rich country automatically because it's Western, or I don't know, because of Toronto or something. But ultimately, when you look at the fundamentals, as we've said many times, Canada is almost like a borderline petrostate. It really is. It really relies on those natural resources, and it shouldn't be ashamed of it. It should
Yeah.
recognize it, I think, and
We're
that's the difference, isn't it? That's what
yeah.
Norway's done, anyway.
We're in the top 5 in reserves, and we're probably in the bottom somewhere in the G20 for GDP. And again, you look at those projects, those massive projects. There's in China, a 400-kilometer by 50-kilometer solar array that's being built. That's going to, and I can't remember the exact number of homes that'll power. It's just amazing. And then the same thing goes in the UK. They're building this 3.2 gigawatt nuclear plant that's going to provide energy for like hundreds of thousands of homes. And yet, in Canada, seem to be stuck and fighting over, like a 2-month GST holiday.
Yeah,
You think of all the lost time and energy that we're fighting and discussing a 2-month GST holiday that the Senate and says that it'll benefit under $5 for each Canadian, when we should be focusing on building high-speed rail, building a 2-lane highway across Canada, building out more green energy. Like Alberta sits at the forefront of becoming the business hub or the Saudi Arabia of new technology, and combining with the natural resources. Alberta is definitely primed to become the crown jewel of Canada.
Yeah, well, it's that old story, isn't it? Energy equals prosperity. That's basically the story of economics, isn't it? And
Somebody needs to put that in an email or an envelope. Well, maybe not an envelope right now, and mail that to the government and say, like, here's the equation. Which part are you having trouble with?
yeah.
Any of the meme of the day? You found the meme of the day. I'll let you explain it.
It's just a man riding a bull in Texas. I mean, who can resist that? And he's also carrying a dog by the looks of it, or a pig or something.
Rommel is scrambling to get it there, but we'll get it there eventually. There you go. Like it's a little video, and only in Texas, I guess, right?
Or maybe Calgary, if you
Or
look
maybe
at
Calgary, the new
attire.
Texas. Hey, the new Texas is right there in Calgary, Alberta. I know he's got a horse there with him too. I absolutely love Calgary. A Kelowna Calgary connection is one of our strongest things. Our brothers and sisters in Calgary, because a lot of them come here, our second homes here, or vice versa. It's a great 1-2. If you can have a home in the beautiful Okanagan Valley here in Kelowna, and you're working in Calgary, that's how Canada works for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah, it's a cool city, and they also have, if I remember rightly, I mean, I'm by far, far away from being an expert in Calgary, but they have free transport, don't they, in the center of the town? Free public transport.
Not 100% sure, but they might have. They do have a lot of really interesting things in Calgary for sure, and they have one of the coolest food scenes as well too. And a really kind of robust downtown, and they're building big convention centers, so it's a beautiful city too, and it's got a beautiful skyline. One of the more beautiful skylines in all of Canada.
It's very cool city.
They got a hockey team too. Anyway, we're under 30 minutes, so there you go. We're at 24 minutes, something like that. So good job. Really big show, and we got it rebranded. And
Yeah, Ed Sullivan wouldn't mind.
yeah, the really big show. There you go. And we thank you for watching Kelowna. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up for our newsletter. Lots of things, right? Visit the website on a daily basis. The newsletter is good, though. It goes out 24/7, or it goes out before 7 a.m., 365 days a year. You can follow us on TikTok, and we'll put a clip of this on TikTok, and of course on our YouTube. And if you could share this content, that'd be greatly appreciated as well. Anything you want to add, Ian, before we sign out for the day?
I think we've done an excellent job of being concise and pithy
go.
for once. So no, I'll leave it at that.
We do have the mayor coming in shortly, so if you have some questions for the mayor, we're going to ask you this a few times. You can definitely send them in to news@kelownanow.com, and we'll ask him during that interview. He will be on with us December 17th, so if you have any questions for Mayor Tom Dias, now's the time to send them in and give you a little bit of time to kind of think about questions, and we'll see what questions we can get to. You can email them in, or you can put them in comments, but the best way to do is email them to news@kelownanow.com. That way they don't get lost in comments and stuff like that. So there you go. With that said, we thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent.